3 weeks ago, Gianni Infantino left New York as the most powerful figure in world football. He had just presided over the biggest World Cup in history. Spain had lifted the trophy at MetLife Stadium. The tournament had generated more revenue than any previous edition. His re-election in March was, by every available measure, a formality. Nobody was running against him. He had the support of almost all of FIFA's 211 member associations. 3 weeks later, 5 countries have withdrawn that support. UEFA has issued a document preservation order that stops the destruction of emails and files in anticipation of a legal investigation. CONCACAF has publicly declared it has lost confidence in his leadership over the FFE proposal. His own former ally, the head of Jordan's Football Association, has used the word blackmail in a published social media post. The English Football Association, which had written him a letter of endorsement, is expected to write him a new letter confirming it no longer backs him. And one of the most perceptive football writers working today has published a piece asking simply, is this the end for Gianni Infantino? This is a story that moved faster in 3 weeks than anything that has happened in football governance in over a decade. So let's go through exactly what happened in the order it happened, because the sequence is everything. Start where the crisis started, not with the withdrawals, with the plan. In late July, reports emerged that Gianni Infantino had been working secretly with JP Morgan and a group of private investors to create a new commercial entity called the FIFA Forward Enterprise, abbreviated to FFE. The proposal would have placed the commercial rights to the World Cup and the Club World Cup into this new entity, which would then raise up to $4.2 billion by selling roughly 20% of its equity to outside investors. The initial valuation placed on the FFE was $20 billion. The lead investor group was to be headed by Thrive Eternal, a company launched by Joshua Kushner in April. Kushner's other ventures include Thrive Capital, a major venture capital firm. His brother Jared Kushner is a prominent business figure with high-profile political connections. FIFA had also been working with JP Morgan throughout the process. When the reports broke, the reaction from European football was immediate and volcanic. UEFA issued a statement that described the proposal as crossing a line that football's governing institutions should never cross. They said the World Cup is not FIFA's to sell. They said the soul and governance of football are not assets to trade. They noted there had been zero transparency about who would gain financially. They requested, in writing, that FIFA halt the plan. CONCACAF, the confederation covering North and Central America and the Caribbean, including the United States, Canada, and Mexico, who had just co-hosted the World Cup, also publicly stated it had lost confidence in Infantino's leadership over the FFE proposal. Infantino retreated. The FFE proposal was officially shelved at the end of July. FIFA said the proposal had been withdrawn to allow further consultation and development. Infantino's office did not use the word abandoned. The word used was shelved, for now. But here's where things get interesting, because the withdrawal of the FFE plan did not calm the situation. It accelerated it. Finland was first. Before the plan was even officially shelved, Finland's Football Federation issued a statement withdrawing its endorsement for Infantino's 4th term. The timing was deliberate. Finland was signaling that the damage was real regardless of whether Infantino reversed the specific decision. Then came Wales. The Football Association of Wales became the first federation to go public after the FFE was shelved, publishing a statement that was unusually direct for a small national association. It cited failures in good governance, process, leadership, values, stakeholder management, communications, and sound judgment. It said failing to put the best interests of football first is a failure we cannot accept. And it confirmed it would not support Infantino's candidature for the 2027 to 2031 term. Serbia followed within hours. The Football Association of Serbia issued its own statement, formally withdrawing support. It reminded FIFA that the federation had previously written a letter of endorsement, and that this endorsement was now being rescinded. Sweden followed the same day. The Swedish Federation said at an extraordinary board meeting held specifically to address the situation, it had chosen not to support Infantino in the upcoming re-election, citing long-term concerns about recurring shortcomings in governance, transparency, and management that had eroded trust. And England, the English Football Association, the oldest national football association on earth, the governing body of the country where the sport was codified, an institution that has been a FIFA member since the early 20th century, is expected to write formally to FIFA to confirm it no longer endorses Infantino. That letter, when it arrives, will be the most symbolically significant individual withdrawal of all five, not because England has more votes than Finland or Wales, but because of what England's involvement in football governance represents historically. That's five: Finland, Wales, Serbia, Sweden, England. All Gianni Infantino needed was patience. Memory for scandal is short, even in a sport as massive as soccer, and whatever controversies the FIFA president willingly courted during the 2026 World Cup would have soon faded into the background as he won what was going to be an unopposed re-election next March. He could have ridden off into the sunset in 2031 and made millions off the connections built during his tenure at the head of FIFA. That wasn't enough for him, though, and so now the walls are instead closing in, a self-inflicted error caused by greed and a plan to turn the World Cup into a private equity playground. That's not a quote from a football politician or a federation official. That's a football writer publishing an analytical piece asking directly whether this is the end for Gianni Infantino. The answer the piece reaches is not yet definitive, but the fact that the question is being asked seriously by people whose job it is to track these things accurately tells you something about where the situation actually stands. But that's only part of the story, because sitting alongside the Federation withdrawals is something that has received less coverage but may ultimately matter more. UEFA said that it had sent a document preservation order, which stops the destruction of emails, files, or data when an investigation is expected. A document preservation order is not a lawsuit. It is not a criminal complaint. It is a formal legal instrument that says, we believe there may be grounds for an investigation, and we want to prevent evidence from being destroyed before that investigation begins. Organizations issue document preservation orders when they are preparing to take legal action and want to ensure the evidentiary record is intact. UEFA has issued one against FIFA. The specific question UEFA is investigating relates to the process by which the FFE proposal was developed and communicated. The claim, circulating among European Federation officials, is that Infantino and his team kept the proposal secret from key stakeholders for months while it was being developed, shared it only selectively, and presented it as effectively fait accompli before the opposition could organize a response. If that account is accurate, it potentially involves breaches of FIFA's own governance rules about consultation and transparency. FIFA's own statutes require the president to maintain transparency with member associations and to consult key stakeholders on major commercial decisions. Whether the FFE process met those requirements is precisely the question UEFA's legal team is examining. Now, here's where the Jordan angle transforms this from an internal football governance dispute into something considerably more serious. In a social media post, Prince Ali said that during the World Cup, where Jordan made their debut in June, he was told if he endorsed FIFA President Infantino, it would go a long way to helping our FA out. Prince Ali, who placed third in a 5-candidate FIFA presidential contest when Infantino was first elected in February 2016, said the whole situation amounts to blackmail, and we refuse to give in to that. Jordan's national team was forced to pay taxes to the US government via FIFA because it held its camp inside the United States, money that was supposed to go to the players and the technical staff. Teams that camped in Canada or Mexico did not bear the same burdens. The 2025 FIFA Arab Cup that Jordan lost in the title match against Morocco was set to pay $4.2 million to the beaten finalist. Several months on, Jordan's players have still not received the financial bonuses for their second-place finish. What Prince Ali is describing is not a contract dispute or an administrative delay. He's describing a pattern in which FIFA withheld money legitimately owed to Jordan's federation, and in which a FIFA representative communicated to him that his endorsement of Infantino's re-election would help resolve these outstanding matters. That is, by any reasonable definition, the use of institutional resources as leverage to extract political support. That's what blackmail means in this context. The federation says it received little support during its historic First World Cup, citing visa difficulties for fans, financial burdens from playing in the US, and outstanding payments from the Arab Cup. Prince Ali hit out at the difficulties faced by Jordanian fans seeking to enter the United States for the summer's World Cup and the exorbitant price of tickets. Every single one of those grievances, the visa difficulties, the ticket prices, the unpaid prize money, the differential tax treatment of teams based in the United States versus Canada or Mexico, have been raised by multiple federations and reported by this channel throughout the tournament's build-up and running. They weren't new problems. They were problems that had been raised repeatedly and addressed inadequately. Now, in the post-tournament context, they've become the specific institutional leverage that a federation president is describing publicly as blackmail. FIFA has not commented. The legal and governance situation is now moving on multiple tracks simultaneously. UEFA's document preservation order, the 5 federation endorsement withdrawals, Prince Ali's public blackmail accusation, the formal ethics complaint from Norway over the Balogun red card suspension, the FIFA disciplinary investigations into Argentina's post-final conduct, the ongoing questions about the banner, the tunnel confrontation, and the consistent pattern of officiating controversy that generated 23 million petition signatures in a week. All of those are live. None of them have been resolved. And in the middle of all of them, Infantino is trying to preserve a 4th term in office that 3 weeks ago was uncontested. Here's where the historical comparison matters enormously, because football governance has been through crises of this kind before, and understanding how they resolved tells you something about what happens next. In May 2015, 4 days before a FIFA presidential election in Zurich, Swiss and American federal agencies simultaneously raided Zurich hotels and arrested senior FIFA officials as part of investigations into corruption at the organization going back decades. Sepp Blatter, who had been FIFA president since 1998, won re-election 4 days later in the shadow of those raids, then resigned 4 days after that. His successor took office 8 months later, Gianni Infantino. The parallels between 2015 and 2026 are real but imperfect. In 2015, the crisis was precipitated by criminal investigations into bribery, kickbacks, and money laundering involving specific named individuals. In 2026, the crisis is precipitated by a governance controversy over a commercial proposal that was legal in structure but ethically contested in process. Criminal investigations have not been announced. Individual arrests have not occurred. But the institutional collapse in confidence in Infantino's leadership is in some ways moving faster in 2026 than it did in 2015. Blatter had 17 years of institutional loyalty behind him when the Zurich arrests happened. Infantino has 10, and the federation's withdrawing support now aren't the small peripheral members of the organization. They're the English FA, they're UEFA's document preservation order, they're the CONCACAF's loss of confidence statement, they're the governing bodies of the sport's most commercially significant markets. The March Congress in Morocco is the moment of formal reckoning. That's where the presidential election happens. That's where Infantino would normally be re-elected unopposed. Whether he is still a candidate at that point, whether a credible opponent has emerged, and whether the federation-level opposition has consolidated into organized support for an alternative are the 3 questions that will determine whether this crisis resolves or escalates further. UEFA's position will be decisive. As the confederation with the most member associations after Africa and the one generating the most of FIFA's commercial revenue through its markets, UEFA's formal stance on both the presidency and any proposed alternative candidates will shape how the broader FIFA membership votes. FIFA's Africa Confederation, which represents 54 member associations, and South America's CONMEBOL have not publicly withdrawn support for Infantino. Their positions and whether Prince Ali's blackmail accusation and Jordan-specific grievances resonate with other Asian Federation presidents who had similar tournament experiences will be the decisive variables. So, where does this leave Gianni Infantino as of today, August 7, 2026? Infantino is still FIFA president. He has been re-elected unopposed twice and has governed the organization for 10 years. He oversaw the successful staging of a 48-team World Cup in 3 nations simultaneously. He negotiated the broadcast and sponsorship deals that generated record revenues. He expanded FIFA's development funding to associations in over 100 countries. He also apparently tried to turn the World Cup into a private equity investment vehicle with political connections, kept that plan secret from the bodies who governed the sport with him, was told he couldn't do it, reversed the plan, and then watched 5 national federations withdraw their endorsements within a week, while Jordan's president publicly accused him of blackmail and UEFA issued a document preservation order in preparation for potential legal action. That is where the most powerful figure in football stands today, and the March Congress in Morocco is 7 months away. What do you think? Is this crisis survivable for Infantino? Or is the combination of the FFE backlash, the Jordan accusation, and the Federation withdrawals enough to force him out? And if he does face a challenger in March, what does football governance actually need from its next president? Drop your thoughts in the comments. These conversations don't get more consequential than this. Hit the like button if this breakdown gave you the full picture of the fastest moving story in football governance right now. Subscribe if you want to follow every development between now and March.